From Washington, this is VOA News. I'm Victor Beattie reporting. Both Russian President Vladimir Putin and his American counterpart Donald Trump Wednesday described bilateral relations as poor.
We may be at an all-time low in terms of relationship with Russia. This is built for a long period of time. But we're going to see what happens. Putin is the leader of Russia. Russia's a strong country. We're a very, very strong country. We're going to see how that all works out.
Mr. Putin said the level of trust has not improved, probably has degraded since Mr. Trump took office. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson in Moscow for talks with Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said Wednesday the two governments agreed to try to improve things.
We've agreed to establish a working group to address smaller issues and make progress towards stabilizing the relationship so that we can then address the more serious problems.
Russian analyst Mark Italy of the University of Western Australia said last week's U.S. missile strike targeting a Syrian airbase following a chemical weapons attack on a northern village did not help.
The bomb being a completely unilateral act by the United States and from the perspective of Russia, a clearly illegal act, has really not helped in the process, Anik.
That attack that U.S. officials said they are convinced was carried out by Damascus left nearly 90 civilians, including children, dead. Syria and Russia both deny Syrian involvement. Tens of thousands marched Wednesday in the South African capital, Pretoria, calling on President Jacob Zuma to leave office. Members of the opposition Democratic Alliance were joined by other political parties accusing Mr. Zuma of corruption and mismanagement. The protest sparked by last week's cabinet reshuffling and the sacking of the country's well-respected finance minister. This is VOA News. Russia Wednesday vetoed a Western effort at the UN Security Council to approve a draft resolution condemning last week's chemical weapons attack and demanding President Bashar al-Assad cooperate with an international investigation. The Russian ambassador, Vladimir Safronkov, said the problem was the document assumed Syrian guilt prior to an independent and objective probe. He accused those supporting the document of being afraid of having an impartial investigation implicate rebels. Ambassador Nikki Haley said the vote could have been a turning point.
Once more, this vote could have been the moment when Russia saw that its interests do not lie with a murderous dictator, but rather with the many countries in the international community, including those across the Middle East, that want to end this conflict. By its failure, Russia will continue to be isolated.
Meanwhile, the UN envoy to Syria, Staffan de Mistura, warned that what he called the fragile progress at Geneva peace talks on Syria are in grave danger.
Already in Geneva, the talks were overshadowed by an intensification of fighting on the ground and continued lack of safe, sustained, unimpeded humanitarian access.
He called for the restoration of a Russian, Turkish, Iranian brokered ceasefire. Egypt is beefing up security ahead of Easter Sunday services at Coptic Christian sites. Last Sunday, suicide bombings at two churches killed more than 40, claimed by Islamic State. As North Korea prepares to observe the 105th birthday of founder Kim Il-sung Saturday, a U.S. think tank reports Pyongyang is preparing a sixth nuclear test. The 38 North website said the North's Punggye-ri test site is, quote, primed and ready. At least 3 people, including a 14-year-old boy, have been killed in spreading anti-government protests in Venezuela that for the first time involved traditionally pro-government areas. Video showed a crowd in southeastern Bolivar state heckling and throwing objects at President Nicolas Maduro. The latest protests follow a Supreme Court ruling allowing the court to assume the duties of the opposition-led National Assembly. The U.S. Wednesday imposed financial sanctions against 2 militia leaders in Central African Republic accused of fomenting violence Abdullah Hussein is chief of the mainly Muslim Salika coalition that overthrew President Francois Bozizé in 2013. Maxime Mocom is leader of the anti-Balaka militia that launched a violent reprisal movement against Salika. United Airlines Chief Executive Officer Oscar Munoz told ABC News Wednesday that he felt shame over Sunday's forced removal of a passenger from a Chicago flight.
This will never happen again on a United Airlines flight. That's my premise and that's my promise.
He apologized to the Vietnamese-born doctor, David Dow, who was forcibly removed by airport police after refusing to be bumped from an overbooked flight. I'm Victor Beattie, VOA News.
That's the latest world news from VOA.